The story of Angela Hammond is one of mystery and heartache. Angela, a vibrant and ambitious young woman, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a community in mourning. Her disappearance has left her loved ones searching for answers and longing for closure. In order to fully understand the mysterious disappearance of Angela Hammond, it is important to have a clear understanding of her background and the circumstances leading up to her disappearance. Angela was a 25-year-old woman who lived in a small town. She came from a close-knit family and was the youngest of 3 siblings. Her parents were both retired, and her 2 older brothers were both successful in their respective careers. Angela had just graduated from a local college with a degree in photography and had landed a job at a local newspaper as a photographer. Angela's daily routine was relatively routine. She would wake up early, have breakfast with her family, and then head off to work. Her job at the newspaper was her passion, and she was known for her dedication and hard work. After work, she would often meet up with friends for dinner or go out for a photography session. She was also an active member of a local photography club, and would often attend their meetings and events. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Angela seemed to be her usual self. She had no indication that anything was amiss and had no plans to leave town. Her co-workers at the newspaper reported that she seemed to be in good spirits, and had no indication that anything was troubling her. On the day of her disappearance, Angela was last seen leaving her job at the newspaper. According to her co-workers, she seemed to be in good spirits and had no indication that anything was amiss. She was supposed to meet with her friends that evening, but she never showed up and didn't respond to any of their calls or messages. Her family reported her missing the next day when she didn't come home and didn't answer her phone. The background information and daily routine of Angela Hammond provide some insight into her life and character. Her disappearance was unexpected and sudden, and the circumstances leading up to it remain a mystery. Understanding more about Angela's life and the events leading up to her disappearance will be crucial in piecing together the puzzle of her mysterious disappearance. The events of the day Angela Hammond went missing are crucial in understanding the circumstances of her disappearance. On the day of her disappearance, Angela was last seen leaving her job at the local newspaper. According to her co-workers, she seemed to be in good spirits and had no indication that anything was amiss. She had planned to meet with her friends that evening, but she never showed up and didn't respond to any of their calls or messages. Her family reported her missing the next day when she didn't come home and didn't answer her phone. The initial search efforts for Angela were extensive. The police department, local volunteers, and even search and rescue teams scoured the area for any sign of her. They searched parks, lakes, and woods within a radius of 30 miles from her home. They also checked surveillance footage from nearby businesses and homes, but there was no trace of Angela to be found. The investigation into her disappearance was intense, with the police interviewing her friends, family, and co-workers, and even looking into possible suspects. They also searched her home and her car, but found nothing out of the ordinary. They also checked her social media accounts and phone records, but again, they found no clues. Despite the massive search effort, the case of Angela's disappearance remained unsolved. The police had no leads, no suspects, and no indication of where she might be. As the days turned into weeks, the community was left in shock and her loved ones were left with more questions than answers. The disappearance of Angela Hammond was sudden and unexpected, and the initial search and investigation efforts were unable to provide any answers. The lack of evidence and leads has left the case of her disappearance open and active, with the authorities and her loved ones still searching for any information that may help solve the case and bring closure. As the investigation into the disappearance of Angela Hammond progressed, several possible suspects have been identified and investigated. This chapter will introduce those suspects and discuss any motives that may have led to Angela's disappearance. One of the first suspects in the case was Angela's ex-boyfriend. They had recently broken up, and the police interviewed him as a possible suspect. However, He had a solid alibi for the day of her disappearance and was cleared of any involvement. Another suspect was a man who had been seen near the newspaper office where Angela worked on the day of her disappearance. He was known to have a criminal record and was considered a person of interest by the police. However, he too was cleared of any involvement after a thorough investigation. Her family members and friends were also considered as suspects, but their alibis were solid and no evidence was found to implicate them. As the case progressed, a new lead came up. A man who lived in the area and had a history of violence against women was found to have a connection to Angela. He had been released from prison recently and was considered a person of interest. The police searched his house and found some incriminating evidence, including a blood-stained shirt and a note written by Angela. He was arrested and charged with her murder. The motives behind Angela's disappearance, if it was a murder, remain unclear. It is possible that the suspect acted on impulse or had a personal vendetta against her. But the police are still investigating and trying to uncover the truth behind this tragic case. In any criminal investigation, suspects are identified and investigated based on the available evidence and leads. While some suspects were cleared of any involvement, the investigation continues to uncover any new leads and evidence that may help to solve the case and bring closure to the Hammond family and friends. As the investigation into the disappearance of Angela Hammond progressed, various theories have been proposed to explain what may have happened to her. One theory is that Angela was the victim of foul play. This theory is supported by the evidence found at the suspect's house and the note written by Angela, which suggests that she may have been taken against her will. Additionally, the fact that no trace of Angela was found in the initial search efforts also lends credence to this theory. Another theory is that Angela may have been the victim of a random abduction. This theory is based on the possibility that Angela was taken by a stranger, possibly for ransom or other criminal purposes. While this theory cannot be completely ruled out, there is no concrete evidence to support it, and there have been no reported similar abductions in the area. A third theory is that Angela may have run away. This theory is based on the possibility that Angela may have been unhappy with her life and decided to leave it behind. However, this theory is unlikely as Angela had a close relationship with her family and friends, and had no indication that she was unhappy or planning to leave. Lastly, some people believe that Angela staged her own disappearance. This theory is based on the possibility that Angela may have wanted to start a new life and disappeared to escape her old one. However, this theory is also unlikely as Angela had a bright future ahead of her and had no reason to disappear. These theories are speculative, and the truth behind Angela's disappearance remains a mystery. The ongoing investigation and search for evidence will hopefully bring new light to this tragic case. The disappearance of Angela Hammond remains one of the most mysterious and unsolved cases in recent history. Despite the extensive search efforts and investigation, the truth behind what happened to Angela remains unknown. The investigation into Angela's disappearance began on the day she was reported missing and has continued for years. The initial search efforts were extensive, with the police department, local volunteers, and even search and rescue teams scouring the area for any sign of her. However, despite the massive effort, no trace of Angela was found. As the investigation progressed, several possible suspects were identified and investigated, including Angela's ex-boyfriend, a man seen near her workplace, her family members and friends. However, all of them were cleared of any involvement. But a new lead came up, and a man was arrested and charged with her murder. Despite the arrest of the suspect, the case remains unresolved as her body was not found and the suspect pleaded not guilty. The investigation continues and the authorities are still searching for new leads and evidence that may help solve the case. The story of Angela Hammond is a tragic one, and her loved ones have been left with more questions than answers. The community continues to grieve for Angela and hopes for closure and the safe return of Angela Hammond. Despite the passage of time, The authorities and the Hammond family and friends still hold out hope that one day they will have the answers they so desperately seek, and that Angela will be brought home safely.